It was back in 2004, while working in South Africa with co-stars Denise Black and Theo Landy. The three actors were travelling on a stretch of highway that was notorious for a number of carjackings that took place. The three had to pull over for a flat tyre, potentially caused by a trap, and were soon surrounded by 6 armed men who tied them up and stole their belongings. As is often the case in carjackings, Benedict Cumberbatch was tied up and forced into the boot of the car, which normally meant that he would be the one to lose his life. In this instance, the actors attempted to try and talk their way out of the situation, while Cumberbatch was forced into the boot of the car. After a few moments and some arguing from the carjackers, Cumberbatch was spared. He was allowed to live, and to this day, he and Denise Black insist they believe it was only through the luck of what they said that they were spared that day. A day that's completely changed his outlook on life, as he has since said, "I was definitely more impatient to live a life less ordinary. I wanted to swim in the sea that I saw the next morning. If you feel you're going to die, you don't think you're going to have all of those sensations again. A cold beer, a cigarette, the feel of the sun on your skin. All those hit you as firsts again. It is, in a way, a new beginning." The truth is, what he says after a near-death experience isn't too shocking, as we've talked before on the channel about how confronting your mortality can shift your perspective on life. The question is, why does this happen? How does mortality influence our attitudes to life? Well, let's look at some of the key factors people consider when they confront death. Number 1, we consider what's important. For most of us, we easily get caught up in the activity of our day-to-day lives that we lose touch with what we might find truly meaningful in life. Benedict Cumberbatch acknowledges this in his statement after experiencing his ordeal. As he never wanted to live what he'd perceive as an ordinary life, he wanted something different, and this experience made him realise that if he truly wanted that, he'd have to chase after this more aggressively. It's here we need to self-reflect in our own circumstance. What is truly meaningful to you and why? Are you making progress towards living life in line with this, and if not, why? The fact is, many say that when you see death, you see your life flash before your eyes, and for many, it's a life full of regret, because they never truly pursued what they felt was important to them, whether it be because of fear or something else entirely. The key here is to understand that our life is limited. We only have so much time available to us, and it's our responsibility to follow through and do what we feel is important in the time we have, if we don't want to waste the opportunity presented to us. Number 2, we self-reflect. What we consider important is one factor, but equally important is our perception of ourselves. Just as we talk about living a life in line with what's meaningful to us, do we live in line with our values? The truth is, many of us will be more readily prepared to live life for others, doing things that others might appreciate, but we ourselves may feel isn't true to us. And this is problematic, because when you put yourself in this position, you have a problem where you may feel an internal sense of conflict, which can lead to bigger problems. If you choose to do something for someone else, it has to be because you chose the responsibility to do so, and in line with the values you want to live your life by. It's not a case of being selfish, but it's about being true to yourself. And this is something Benedict Cumberbatch acknowledges when he speaks following the situation in South Africa, as he says, "It's taught me that you come into this world as you leave it, on your own." Meaning life is a very personal journey, and when it comes down to it, if you don't do what's important to you, then you've possibly missed the most significant aspect in each of our lives. Number 3, we are reminded our time is limited. It's quite simple. When young, we often believe we have a great deal of time in our lives to achieve everything we might want to, causing us to hold back in our pursuit. For many, they reach a point around their 40s where they look at where they are in life and realise they aren't where they want to be, commonly resulting in what we know as a midlife crisis, where they desperately try to get all of the things they wanted when young. And worse yet is when people are at the end of their life and they know they've gotten too old to achieve their dreams and reflect back to have great regrets, asking themselves, what if? Nobody wants to be in those circumstances, and the confrontation with death, something most don't want to consider, can be an important wake-up call that our time is limited and we never know when our life may end. If you genuinely want to pursue something, now is the time to take action. Again, Benedict Cumberbatch acknowledges this when he says, "I was definitely more impatient to live a life less ordinary," as he clearly understood that had he died, he had lost the opportunity to live the life he could. Number 4. We grow courage. I've alluded to it earlier in this video, but one of the biggest factors that holds us back in life is our fear of failure, or how we might be perceived by others when pursuing a life of meaning. I have personally experienced this, as recently I put out something I felt was important and it was somewhat controversial and has been rejected by some. The truth is, when you pursue anything that's important in life, you have to be prepared for the potential consequences of your actions, and you have to bear the responsibility that comes with what you do. Most will hold back, and who can blame them? It's a very difficult circumstance to deal with, but at the same time, it's equally a sign of maturity if you can bear the burden and deal with the issues in a way that's productive. The fact is, death often puts these fears into perspective, because you realise that in the end, your life will end just like everyone else's, and so whatever you might be afraid to do in life is suddenly shifted into perspective of importance. This is something Benedict Cumberbatch realised himself when faced with death, as he grew courage to take greater action in the pursuit of his goals, leaving aside hesitations for what was important to him. Number 5. We celebrate. When confronted with death, we have a natural tendency to associate negative connotations with the experience, and rightly so. It's not a trivial matter. However, equally important is to acknowledge the role death plays in our lives and use it as a positive force to live life with meaning and purpose. If nothing else, death can be an incredible motivator, because with the aforementioned effects discussed, it gives us perspective on our lives and what we want to do in it. Just as Benedict Cumberbatch says, it is, in a way, a new beginning. It's here you shift perspective, that yes, we shouldn't undervalue the importance of the event that occurred and the gravity of death, but equally so, if you're still here, you still have the chance to live your life in a way that you value. And this is the key. Just as we might confront death, if you're alive, then celebrate life and don't let it pass you by.